makes me wanna holler, go away. I need more peace and hope and love. Where do I find it in this crazy old world? I need strategies, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Every time I listen, Lauren and David share strategies for living, and it makes me aware. I've got strategies for living, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio.
Oh, you know, we need them. Yes, we do. We need those strategies, don't we? Those strategies for living. So are you ready? You ready for your daily dose of radio rehab?
Oh, I am ready today.
I knew you would be. Hey, folks, welcome. Welcome into Strategies for Living. I'm Dr. David McMillian. She is psychotherapist, PLPC Lauren Leon McMillian. We're delighted that you are with us here on Strategies for Living. You know, I'm going to begin this way, Lauren.
Okay.
Mental health. It's no longer a whisper.
No?
No.
I'm glad for that. I'm very
it's not in the
thankful for
background anymore.
No.
It's
at the forefront, isn't it?
It truly is. And but since it's in the forefront, let's identify the elephant in the room, huh?
Okay.
It's an unrelenting silent epidemic that we've got going on. In fact, you could say pandemic. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And our life strategists today have a new book out. It's called The Silent Pandemic. And they are Cory and Philip Clare. Mm-hmm. And they take aim at the root causes of today's global, this is around the world, global mental health breakdown. And it's good. This is going to be a fascinating conversation today because we're gonna talk about mental health in teenagers and adults, in older adults, and we're
in all of us, and how this quote unquote problem perhaps is pushing us towards some new evolution in consciousness. Perhaps
it is time.
Where can it lead us? And what can we do with it?
There you go. The book is The Silent Pandemic: Solving the World's Mental Health Crisis. And we are we've got two great life strategists lined up.
Boy, do we ever.
We do. So buckle your seatbelt, folks. We are going to be joined by Cory and Philip Clare today. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you being with us here on Strategies for Living, and we appreciate our sponsors making it all possible: the Robinson Film Center, and Azalea Cleaners, and Pintail Roofing, and Learning RX, and the Balanced Life Wellness Center, and Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of The Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, and some pretty good muffies, too. Back in a moment to meet Cory and Philip Clare, our life strategists today, here on Strategies for Living. Be right back.
Tune in daily, find the light. Healthy mind and spirits bright. Strategies for living strong. Feel the vibe, it won't go wrong. Body moves and soul align. Catch the rhythm, feel the time. Radio rehab every day. Chase those clouds of gray away. Your daily dose of radio rehab. Lift you up when skies seem drab. Mind and body, spirits free. Living life in harmony.
And welcome into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. Let's welcome into the program now Cory, after completing her graduate studies in education psychology. Caroline established herself as a pioneer in the field of self-development meditation, spirituality, and consciousness science. And since 2017, she's worked with world-renowned neuroscientists and experts from Harvard Medical School, IONS, and Stanford University, conducting scientific experiments on the correlation between our mental state and their effect on our environment and the physical body. She's also an award-winning filmmaker who's tackled thought-provoking subjects and social issues. So welcome, Caroline, into Strategies for Living.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. And let's introduce your associate and co-host, Philip de Clare, hails from Dublin, Ireland, completed his bachelor's degree in religious science at Mater Dei University with a advanced degree in educational psychology, which stirred him into a deep appreciation for the human condition and its mental health challenges. He's a passionate advocate for mental health and has committed his life's work to raising awareness and finding new solutions to the world's mental health crisis. Philip de Clare, welcome into Strategies.
Welcome, Philip.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So this book, The Silent Pandemic, Solving the World's Mental Health Crisis. And by the way, folks, you can find out more about it at thesilentpandemic.com. Get it wherever you buy books. You're kind of going down some different roads from the norm.
Not quite the mainstream.
Yeah, is that is that fair to say, Cory and Caroline and Philip?
Totally fair. And in fact, that's the reason why we decided to write this book, because our background's very, very different, even though we trained in psychology, educational psychology. But dealing, for example, for me with clients for years and years, I realized there are components that we don't really address, in traditional psychotherapy. It's very, very helpful for sure, but I've discovered additional perspectives that are turned out to be very, very helpful. And I realized we don't really talk about them so much. And for Philip as well, his background being art and creativity,
right.
There's some tools as well that are very, very useful that aren't very common. So that's the reason why we said, you know what, we need to include, in addition to traditional, psychotherapy and techniques that are amazing,
Right.
but how about also these different perspectives? For example, the aspect of consciousness, energetic, like the energy, how you can be affected by things that aren't even yours, for example. So things like that don't come up, or existential questions, for example, when a teenager has a teammate who commits suicide or whatever, so these are the questions and the tools that we thought maybe needed, to be shared, and that's why we included them in the book.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that, as I mentioned, we're talking about through the lifespan. So we're talking about teenagers, we're talking about adults, we're talking about older adults, and I love the fact that you guys cover all the bases, if you will.
Yeah, it's interesting because we actually started out writing the book just for teenagers.
Wow.
And then as we began to do our research and we began to talk to, people, well, we both extensively travel as well. So we have friends of all different ages. We really realized that this is actually affecting everybody. It's really the elephant, in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And I really liked your introduction where you were talking about it being everywhere. It seems to be pervading everywhere, and yet nobody really wants to talk about it.
It's not that it affects everyone, but I also noticed that it affects everyone and a different time in your life as an adult, you deal with these issues very differently than as a teenager.
Sure.
And then you have a different set of mental health struggles as you get even older. So that's why we started out with just teenagers, and then we're like, no, wait a minute. Adults, you can talk to adults, for example, as, okay, your problem is coming from a trauma when you were a child, this happened when your dad left home, or this or that. And perhaps the way and the tools are different. They register differently in the mind of an adult.
Right.
Whereas a teenager, maybe, you could just tell them, could you visualize something? Kids are so open to visualization,
Yes.
to different, what I mean? Completely different things that help them shift, that aren't so analytical, for example. So that's the reason why we realize the struggles are slightly different and the tools are different. That's why we ended up covering from the teen years all the way to the older adults.
And again, this is a global crisis. I mean, if you look at depression, if you look at suicide, if you look at substance abuse, is there any place that they're not on the rise, or, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. And the more you travel, the more you visit other countries, the more you realize that there is something going on, and there is something very, very different about this phenomenon. And you only have to sit in on a conversation with, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I sat there a couple of times with her and her friends, and I was like, oh my God. It's like they are on a daily basis really dealing with things that I don't think I had to deal with, or I was conscious of at that age.
Yeah.
But wait, go ahead, Lauren, sorry.
I was just going to ask, kind of in that vein, how has modern society contributed to this widespread disconnection? Like, are there specific cultural habits or technologies that you see?
Yes. I think that if you start with the teenagers and work your way up, you begin to realize that this overemphasis on social media and technology, and this disconnect from self, is really causing a huge amount of overwhelm. Like my daughter, for example, she's 15, and she's very overwhelmed by very basic tasks. So it seems that the technology is really disconnecting them internally. And then this is kind of bleeding out into their lives.
Right.
And, there's kind of a misconception about different cultures. Like, we think sometimes that poor countries, they don't have, the technology, or they don't have all the facilities that more civilized countries or advanced countries do, that they would have more mental health issues. And that's not the case. Not at all. In fact, suicide is one of the highest in the Nordic countries, where, they have supposedly the most perfect social, structures and systems. It's like they have everything. So what are you complaining about? And yet they have the highest rate of suicide. So it's very interesting. That's the reason why, as we were writing this book, and especially for me, the deep inside, we're not talking about cultures, we're not talking about society, we're talking about the human spirit. It's what it is that's making this human spirit struggle, and then you see the common denominators across the board.
All right.
And so
how do the human spirit, and we're talking mental health, how do we exactly define? Because I think we've kind of been talking about mental health problems, but I'm going to take a step backwards. What is mental health, guys?
You want to get that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for me, mental health is the ability to be able to deal with life's challenges or issues or problems in a constructive manner, and not to feel as if life is sort of running rickshaw over you, and you have an inability to be able to deal with basic human issues every day. Because what happens is, if you spend time in schools or universities and in our research, what we realized is that there's so much coming at the kids now, and adults as well, that there's an inability to have that internal resolve or that internal strength, because people are just getting pulled out of themselves so much every day. And therefore, it's only a matter of time before, you have the consequence of that being anxiety or depression. I mean, if there is a predisposition for the person to have some type of mental health issue, and they are continuously externalizing everything, it's only a matter of time before something is going to break down.
Yeah.
For me, it's slightly different, actually. When you talk about mental health, when you say what is mental health, which actually it's so interesting to go back to the very basic. For me, it goes back to who we are as a human, So for me, mental health, it has more to do with our consciousness, spiritual, existential health. Like, who are we? Why are we struggling with daily things in the first place? What is reality? So I tend to a little bit go in that direction, maybe because of my background. But if, like, for example, in schools, we don't talk about any of this. We're taught, math and algebra and geography and, things that are subjects that we don't really need or use to deal with life.
Right.
And so, you know what I mean? And
sounds like you guys make a great team. That's what it sounds like to me. Philip de Clare, Caroline Cory, they are a great team. They're the authors of The Silent Pandemic. You can find the book wherever you buy books. Check them out at thesilentpandemic.com. We've got much more to talk about, much more to learn today on Strategies for Living with Caroline Cory and Philip de Clare. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And welcome back into your daily dose of radio rehab. We call it Strategies for Living. Glad you're here. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. We are here today with Caroline Cory and Philip de Clare. They're our life strategists because they've got a new book out. It's called The Silent Pandemic. You can find it wherever you buy books. You can find it at thesilentpandemic.com. And when we talk about, I think I heard some guys. I think I heard the word connection a few minutes ago. I may have heard the word purpose. Did I hear both of those terms last segment from both of you?
Connection.
Yeah.
I think we insinuated, when I was talking about why are we here? What is the purpose of our existence here as a human on planet Earth? Then you open up questions like that. Why? Like, what is really my purpose? And so, that's what we started talking about. And I think we don't talk about these things in schools,
right?
Even though kids do ask these questions. Absolutely. Especially when they see, and so, you see school shootings and kids committing suicide and kids getting hooked on drugs. All of these, trigger these sorts of questions. And we don't have the tools. We're not sitting down and talking to them about this from that angle. We just tell them, see a therapist, which is helpful because you do need that. But then the real question of who they are and what their purpose is, we don't really talk about.
But that whole idea, the whole idea of connection,
Yes. Yeah.
Just like what changed over the years. Well, if you look at ancient societies, tribal societies, issues and problems were really dealt with by the tribe. So a lot of the children would go to the elders, they would learn from the elders, they would learn from teachers, and they would discuss problems and work through them together and learn. But now you have a society where kids are supposed to figure it all out on their own. They're disconnected from themselves, but also disconnected from their tribes. So it's this intense individualization of self that really has, it's on steroids right now. And then if you toss on top of that social media dependence, the disconnection from self has never been more stronger.
How do you begin to integrate, especially, let's start with teens. I'm thinking about both ends of the spectrum now. I'm thinking about teens on one end. I'm thinking about older adults on the other who have lived a lifetime and have a, pretty solid set. Many of them have their solid sets of the way that at least they've interacted with the world. So how do we integrate consciousness and even energy work on both sides of the spectrum, guys?
For consciousness, so I was asking.
Yeah, for consciousness.
Yeah. So, again, so it's very interesting because Philip, like he was saying, he has a 15-year-old and she has a school attendance problem. She just doesn't want to go to school. And so, of course, you keep talking to them and, force her to do this and that. It just doesn't work. Right. One time I was teaching a class for children, actually. And I was teaching them about connecting to source, which is connecting to a higher power or connecting to a higher guidance or something like that. And so it sounds very out there to some parents, but it was the easiest, the simplest, most comfortable, familiar thing that she had done. She joined the class. And she told me how she loved it. She felt an energy of light. She started telling me I felt completely relaxed. And it was only 5 minutes. So, yeah, it was like a 5-7 minutes meditation. Yeah. And so I think if you package it in a way that's not like, oh, it's meditation, so serious, so difficult, so complicated, but bring it on as a almost like a game, as a fun thing. Close your eyes. Do you guys feel? Can you guys see a white light? I can just right away. They can just see it because it's like a game. Yeah. You know what I mean? You start introducing these concepts in a joyful way, and it's the easiest thing and simplest thing, and they love it and they feel it. They feel the shift. So that's how you do it with children. With older adults, it's the same thing. It's just that you can use more logic. You can talk a little bit about the science, that we have an energy field, that there's frequencies, vibrations, things like that when they are open to it. Right. And it's actually quite easy.
I think from my background, I have seen nothing bridge the gap more between children and teenagers and elders than art. If you have any type of an art therapy class and you don't talk about all the problems they're going through and just take out a paintbrush and start to paint, everything in the unconscious will come out. So it's almost like in sharing in this communal experience together, I think that they can also express themselves in a more authentic way than talking about it, by just sharing and by just being communal. Because I know my own daughter struggles sometimes with expressing how she's feeling. But if she paints or if she writes, she likes to write a lot. If she writes, there's a freedom for her, and I get to see her in a different way as well. I think part of the issue as well is that we're always trying to fix people. But if we could just listen a bit more and just be, like Caroline was saying, to just share space, I think we may learn a lot more on how to deal with this issue.
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that I kind of worry about is our mental health professionals. Yeah. And the training that they get, because everything is so much about cognitive and rational.
Yeah, and evidence-based. Logical, left brain.
I think you guys are, you're certainly not, I don't hear you at all dissing that, but I hear you saying
we need to incorporate the other as well.
We need to go beyond that. So that's kind of, I don't want to be negative in any way, but I mean, that's one of the, I'm wondering if that's one of our blocks, if If the, if,
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly the point. Is it could be too analytical, too much in your head, trying to process the information, and the information is already in your head. So it's almost like, but when you look at it from an energetic or consciousness point of view, the more you focus on the problem, the more you are in the problem. So, I mean, we trained, as you guys did as well, in school, you're kind of a sounding board. You allow the person to express, which is amazing, but then you want to move on from that, so to speak. And the way to do that is to switch to the feeling, to the energetic, to the being. And that changes the story entirely, because now you're no longer processing or analyzing what happened and why you're this way or what trauma did what. And you're more in the cellular feeling, and you're saying, okay, well, this particular feeling I don't like it. I don't like being this way. Okay, well, you can shift it. Try breathing this way, visualize this, imagine that, and things shift completely, like in just a few minutes. And so you allow the brain to relax and go back into your heart and into your just your emotional space, and shift it from an energetic frequency point of view. And the results are amazing. We've seen that with kids, with adults. So that, I think maybe that's why, I don't know if these are blocks, David, but I think that's the approach that we're trying to take. And same for art.
Yeah, I think for me, that's very astute what you said, because I myself had very bad anxiety in my 20s and panic attacks. And I remember seeing healthcare professionals at the time, and exactly like you just said, it was almost like it was seen as a problem, as an issue.
Right.
But sometimes there's a blessing in there. Sometimes there's a growth. I learned more compassion for myself and for others. So that's very astute. And I think that's back to the whole issue of, looking upon it as a problem, as opposed to looking upon it as, an opportunity to perhaps have a greater understanding of yourself or your self-worth,
Yeah.
Or instead of focusing on processing the problem, shifting the focus to expressing what feels good. It seems like a very subtle change, but it completely opens you up to literally like an instant healing. Does that make sense? Because you're no longer acknowledging that there's something wrong with you. You've already done that. You've already talked about it. You've already given, permission and forgiveness and everything else. But then you're still vibrating, like you're still in that space, unless you shift to, that's why art, for example, or meditation or breathing, all of that is allowing you to express, not externalize what feels good. And doing that over and over, then you release a lot, and then you start moving forward in that direction.
Right.
I love that you differentiated between express and externalize. And is that key to our shift as a society that we might need to make to move towards a healthier society?
Exactly. It's expression that I think is the key to shift.
Yeah.
Because when I'm talking about a problem, so I have anxiety, I have depression, or when I go to this place, or when I'm driving, I have panic attack. I'm still using the cognitive part of my brain, the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, analyzing what's wrong. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But then when I express, I drop down to my heart. What makes me feel good? It makes me feel good to dance. It makes me feel good to listen to music. It makes me feel good. As I am feeling and expressing, my whole energy shifts. You see? And then I'm in a completely new trajectory.
Yeah. A more heart-led experience. Yeah.
We are
exactly.
We're talking to Philip de Clare. We're talking to Caroline Cory today. The book is The Silent Pandemic. You can find it at thesilentpandemic.com. It's about solving the world's mental health crisis. We've got more from both Caroline and Philip, today here on Strategies. Stay with us.
Facing the same old problems day to day makes you wanna holler, get away. Looking for the road that'll get me there, looking for hope and peace to spare. Looking for strategy.
Oh, yeah. You got them right here. Strategies. Strategies for living.
You found us.
Yeah, you did. Hey, you may be listening to our program today and say, geez, I want a friend of mine, or I want
everybody should hear this episode.
This is important. So here's the deal, folks. If you're listening to us on radio and you want to hear the entire program, you're catching a piece of it, we are now podcasting.
That is right.
So wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Apple or Spotify or iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast, just search Strategies for Living. We're going to come up, subscribe to us, and spread the word. And because that's the way we grow. It's Caroline, Cory, and Philip DeClaire. You guys have mentioned traveling all over the world. It's been so fun since Lauren and I started podcasting to have have listeners in Australia and Japan and Paris, France, and Africa,
Yeah.
and it's been wild where people tune in and where people listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
So let's talk, because we've been talking about the problem. Let's shift to strategies. Let's shift a bit to solutions. Is there one thing that anybody listening right now can do to start the healing process in terms of healing and correcting their own personal situation in terms of mental health?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is to remember is you are not alone. There are so many people who have similar problems. It's really mind-boggling how widespread all of these imbalances or discomforts are. I mean, it's just, you're not alone. So that's the first thing to remember. And the second thing is just to stop. Just stop. Whenever it starts to be too much, just stop and breathe. Take a moment to go within, to breathe, to reset. Then the clarity will come. What should I do next? To find help, to find guidance, to find a friend. It doesn't matter, because every case is different. It's case by case. But if you just directly act out, you're used to just going to take that pill or going to do some crazy thing,
Right.
Then you're never going to heal. So if you catch yourself and just stop, breathe, take a minute, I think it will bring you that clarity and focus.
Bringing you back.
Yes, and I think, I think for myself, if you have a listener out there or somebody who's not doing well, I think one of the greatest things that we can do is to remove the self-judgment and say, it's okay that I'm not okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and stop putting on this facade of joy and happiness and trying to pretend that you're okay. I mean, I only have to, drop my daughter off in the morning to school, and I will see so many teenagers, the minute they enter into the school, you can just see them putting on this face.
Yeah.
And you just know that they're not okay.
Yeah.
So I think one of the first things to do, and, not to say that we're totally super guilty of this in America, of feeling good all the time, but I think one of the things we need to do is just really remove the self-judgment and start to find a way to really express how you are feeling, be it writing or painting or whatever it is. But the first step for me in my own anxiety was just to get out of my own way and just say, you know what, I'm not okay. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what we do, and Lauren writes every morning.
Yeah.
So I start with my artistry. I go down and artistically make her a cup of
Matcha.
matcha, and I facilitate. I bring it up to her, and then but that's really made a difference for you.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, Caroline can understand this too, because I mean, that's my part of my connection with Source every morning, is to really tap in and see what's on the table for the day for me.
Yeah. And
I love that.
But it
I
also
love that. Yeah.
connects with Philip with art and expression. I mean, it's a marriage of the two, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's absolutely, I mean, think about this, Lauren. If we were just teaching our kids as part of the program, whether it's when you get up in the morning or when you get to school, the first thing you do is stop, close your eyes, breathe.
Oh,
How are you feeling today?
Mm.
What am I feeling today? If you feel bad, if you're okay, let's shift it. Breathe, relax, visualize. 10 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
But you get, and then set your intention. What is your focus? How do you really want to feel? Just say it. You know what I mean?
yes.
And then, like, if they get used to doing such a simple thing like that, I mean, their whole life could change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you could start that. You could start that with the kindergartners.
Littles,
They would learn that, and that would be wonderful.
And it's empowering. I mean, it shifts that locus of control internal.
What's one thing?
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's one thing the other end of the spectrum? Because the lifetime, we've got a lifetime with the older adults, a lifetime of beliefs, built up. What's the one thing that we can say to them? Hey, this is something you can do.
So for myself, my mother's sister lost her husband, very young actually he was, and she started to paint, and she started to express herself through art. And I find that as you've gone through these life lessons and you've, let's say, gathered and congealed a lot of beliefs, or maybe some of them are negative, or you think you know everything, art is a way of freeing up the human spirit as you age in a far deeper, more contextualized way. And even when I used to look at her paintings, it was the colors of the fact that she had gone through life, but she wasn't allowing herself to be overrun by her grief or her sorrow or her sadness. She was expressing it, but she was expressing it in a way in which others could relate to it, but also see that she had gone through life, but she wasn't in any way overrun by it. Right. And I think art for me is something that, is, and a lot of older people do get into art, a lot of them do write, and a lot of them do draw, but if they could do it together, I think it's even more powerful.
Absolutely.
The Silent Pandemic. Philip DeClaire with Caroline Cory, wherever you buy books, and check it out at thesilentpandemic.com. We'll be back to wrap up our conversation with Caroline and Philip, but they're going to have to come back because we've got many, many more conversations to have. Be right back. And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, Caroline Cory, Philip DeClaire. The book is The Silent Pandemic. And it's
and we have barely scratched the surface.
Oh man, solving the world's mental health crisis. You can find out more at thesilentpandemic.com. Philip and Caroline, y'all have got to promise to come back because we, as Lauren said, we just barely scratched the surface. But what do you each want to leave us with as we wrap up today?
Well, I just wanted to mention also for older adults, we were just talking about that because it's relevant to everybody.
Mhm.
We have a different set of problems as we grow older.
Right.
And so I think the biggest thing is to remind everyone that, they're not alone, but more importantly, to make people relevant. Because when people focus on how they are contributing to society, it changes the whole perspective of, oh, I'm alone, oh, I'm getting old, oh, this or that. And you start to focus on how can I be of service. So that focus on purpose and why you are here, I think is extremely healing and help you shift from a place of depression or what have you to a place of joy and purpose.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's so important.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming and being a part of Strategies for Living today. This is the kind of program that we need to have 3 or 4 more hours to do. But the producer is shaking his head and saying, yep, your time's up. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Philip. Folks, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you being a part of Strategies for Living, and we appreciate our sponsors making it possible. The Robinson Film Center, and Azalea Cleaners, and Pintail Roofing, and Learning RX, and the Balanced Life Wellness Center, and Fertitas Delicatessen, home of the Godfather, alligator Italian sausage, and some pretty good muffies too. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Philip DeClaire, for Caroline Cory, for Lauren Leon McMillian, I'm David McMillian. See you next time right here on Strategies for Living.